thank you everybody for joining us at Hope for Our Times. And guess what? I have my friend, my very good friend, joining us, and you guys know him. He hasn't been on here in quite a while. By the way, he's going to be joining us in El Centro. It's going to be really cool for our prophecy conference coming up there. I think we might have it on the events page. That's coming up in El Centro, California here at the end of January, beginning of February. David Tal is here today, going to be joining us there. David's everywhere now. David, I'm seeing you everywhere, and it's great.
Thank you. This is my home base. I got to say this. So whenever and however we want to do this, let me know.
Okay, I need to have you on a lot more often, probably, I'm thinking, as long as you can. And even when you're in Israel, I need to. So, but this is great having you on today. So much to talk about. We're just going to dive right in, but I do want to work in some things about Nativah, Gihon Springs, Balagon connection. You have your Balagon connection shirt on. So I want to make sure everybody gets that, understands this, and supports you and things like that. But let's just dive right into it.
And there is a big ocean to dive into. I mean, wow, everything's happening, everything's moving, the waves are getting bigger and bigger.
Okay, let's start just here. Obviously, Syria, for me, I was surprised by it going back a couple of weeks. I didn't have it on my bingo card, and all of a sudden it was there. But Assad regime is fallen. As far as I know, Assad's over in Moscow now. We have the rebel takeover. Where do you see this going? And what's Israel going to do? I mean, I have a lot of questions. Like, how far into Syria does Israel go? Are they going to...
I think I'm going to take about 5 minutes, if we're okay, and kind of run through a couple of things quickly that are projected from an Israeli point of view.
Please.
The Syrians were always the worst of our enemies. They were the most cruel. The Syrian prisoners of war who came back after the Yom Kippur War were in a much more horrific condition than the prisoners of war that came back from Egypt, and that's saying a lot. And now that they opened these prisons in Damascus, we understand that it was like medieval kind of cruel. They're wacko. They're totally wacko. I grew up as a little tank commander on the Golan Heights, thinking that the Syrians are going to try to conquer us from the Golan Heights. They tried in 1973. They didn't succeed. So I'm coming with a Syrian fear of Syria, fear of Assad, fear of the Syrian army really in my DNA. And to see Syria fall apart like that has been a major event for us. I mean, it literally, like the Wicked Witch of the West, I think, and we've got Wicked in our head when, the water gets poured on her and she kind of melts. That's what I felt happen with Syria. And everybody is amazed that we didn't see that. But I think it lines up with something that I think is becoming more and more evident as we speak. If you'd asked me 2 months ago, the two main power brokers in the Middle East were Israel and Iran. And when I say power brokers, I'm going to say these are the two countries in the Middle East that were able to project military power further than their borders. I mean, Saudi is a power broker, but Saudi doesn't project military power. So Syria wasn't. Jordan definitely isn't. So the two entities in the Middle East that could project military power were Israel and Iran. And that war has been taking place, and Iran has lost this cold, hot war of attrition. But a new player has stepped in, and that player is Turkey/Qatar, who is becoming the third axis in this new situation. They saw Israel taking out Iran. They saw the power vacuum. And in a nutshell, Erdogan manages to pick up on okay, here's a gap that I can sink into. And Erdogan, for his own reasons, and I'm going to mention the Muslim Brotherhood on one, because let's not forget, Iran is Muslim Brotherhood, okay, and deal with the Kurds on his southeastern border is too. And for those two reasons, Erdogan say, wait a minute, My two enemies are smacking each other. One's going this way, one's going that way. Okay. And I can slip myself into the gap in the middle. And in a big picture, that's exactly what happened over the last couple of weeks.
So Turkey, what you're saying is Turkey is basically positioning itself as this leader in Syria.
Exactly. It's positioning itself as a leader in the Middle East. It's positioning itself now as the head of the Muslim world. And again, um, re, again, it's the Shia axis with Iran and the Houthis and the Hezbollah has actually fallen. The Hamas connected itself to the Shia axis for all kinds of reasons. And by the way, it's the Hamas that brought down the Iranian Ring of Fire. And again, the term I use is that the El Aqsa flood put out the Ring of Fire. It's totally, because without that, that wouldn't have happened. Hamas blew its load, for lack of a better word, and Iran is paying a terrible price for it. But that is lost. And here's the thing: the moderate nations, Saudi, the Gulf states, and Egypt, okay, realize that the only power broker right now in the Middle East is Israel. I mean, if you want to be a part of this, and the glue that's holding that together is the new administration in the United States, President Trump. He's going to be holding that glue together. But there's going to be a Muslim Brotherhood, and let's remind everybody, the Muslim Brotherhood is Al-Qaeda, or Al-Qaeda was the Muslim Brotherhood. ISIS was the Muslim Brotherhood. So that sentiment, that hatred of the West and of Israel is still there. But if Saudi Arabia connects to Israel and the United States, and Iran is not going to be a player the way it was in the past, then the Muslim Brotherhood slash militant Islam, the Sunni Islam, is going to be the main glue that's going to glue all of the pieces of this together. And I think that's what we're going to see in the near future. And here's the thing, I'm not sure about Russia, but Iran is out of Syria. Russia might come back into Syria. So add that combination to Russia. And according to what I heard the other day, Russian and this rebel El-Julani rebel conglomerate are back to negotiating the Russian base on the Mediterranean in northern Syria. If Russia gets back on this road, so Russian, Turkey, and the Muslim Brotherhood have a very big interest in destabilizing what's happening. And I think we're in for a long haul here.
Wow. Okay, so this is really interesting. I want to ask you about Israel pushing into Syria, the Druze saying we want to be Israeli territory. The whole thing is absolutely fascinating. Having the Muslim Brotherhood just at the other side of the northern border of Israel is not great news. But I'm looking at this, what's worse, the Assad regime or
this?
This.
Well, I'm not sure, but let's tie a couple more things together because it is a Balagan connection. Start off with the fact that his name is El-Julani. Now, what is the El-Julani? That's not his real name. That's his terme de guerre, his military name, his warrior name. El-Julani means the Golan Heights. His father was from the Golan Heights. He is a Golan Cheek, basically, which means he has ties to the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights is a little piece of land between us and Syria. So let's not forget who we're dealing with. Two, this is ISIS. This is everything that we know. I mean, some of his fighters stood in the mosque in the middle of Damascus and says, okay, I think it was Leonard Cohen had a song, first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. I don't know if you remember that. Okay. And what these rebels are saying now, they're not rebels. They're saying first we take Damascus, then we take El-Quds, which is basically Jerusalem. So I don't think, I mean, it's in their DNA to spread the caliphate. And so Israel has a caliphate pushing entity on the other side of its border. So the first thing Israel did is say, wait a minute, wait a minute. Right now, the Russians are on the way out. The Iranians can't rely. We have free reign to what's going on. And we put up a list of all the weapons that we would not want to have used against us, and we started marking off submarine bases, missile boats, ballistic missiles, chemical missiles, biological missiles. Israel, for the last week, has been taking out systematically everything that we don't want them to have when they're sitting on our border. Then on the Golan Heights, we're saying, wait a minute, let's put a little bit of a buffer. The border between Israel and Syria on the Golan Heights was what we determined in 1967. We conquered in 1967. We went on the Golan Heights. We said, this is the border. The reason, by the way, for that, you've been on Mount Bental with me. You can see from Mount Bental, it's a strategic position. So we put the border there, and the United Nations put a buffer zone saying between the Syrian army and the Israeli army, there's going to be an area with no army, only United Nations. And that was supposed to separate the forces. Israel is saying, we can't trust the United Nations. The other side is somebody who wants to kill us. So we moved into the determined buffer zone. And we're saying, until we see what's going on the other side, this is where we are. And Israel's point of view is this. We don't know, but we are worried about the worst. We will take our own defense into our own hands because we can't trust anybody to do this. And if there's peace in the Middle East and us and the Syrians become sit down and sing kumbaya, we can give them back the buffer zone. But for now, let's hold on to it. And I think that, to a certain extent, is the role that Israel is playing right now. And in the meantime, looking very, very closely at who's on the other side of this demand. You talked about the Druze?
Yes, the Druze. So let's talk about that, because I'm looking at a map right now. So on the map, I have the Golan Heights. I look at the DMZ, the UN demilitarization zone that Israel is now in, and then the Druze are right there. This part of the territory that they're saying, we want to be part of Israel. This is just, to me, this is really fascinating, because then after we're done talking about all of these other things, I got to ask you what's going to happen in Gaza. But let's just go with the Druze first, because to me, this is just, it's almost a mind blower. Most of this stuff has just been a mind blower lately.
In two sentences, the Druze are the Muslim version of the Mormons. They kind of moved away from Islam. They became a little bit different, and they were ostracized. And just like the Mormons had to put up their little area in Salt Lake City, the Druze actually have centers in Israel, in Syria, and in Lebanon. And here's the thing. The Druze live very well in Israel. They have family ties with the Druze in Syria, meaning the Jewish population, they intermarry, they're cousins, they're uncles, they're connected. So they're really, really connected. And if you're a young Druze living in Syria, you see that nothing good is going to come out of any kind of regime is there. You look at your cousin living in Daliat el Carmel, where we've had falafel meals many, many times, and you're saying, I want to live like that. I want that kind of security. I want that kind of life. I don't want the kind of life that is only going to get worse and worse under any kind of regime. I mean, they were totally persecuted by the Assad regime. Now they have an Islamic regime that believes in massacring Yazidis. The Druze are as bad for the Muslims as the Yazidis are. Okay, they were in Iraq. So they are saying, yes, we want to be a part of Israel. Now, Israel is saying, whoa, we would love to have a Druze independent buffer, associate, ally between us and the crazies in Damascus. And that would be something very, very interesting to see how it would happen. I mean, we would love to have this. I'm not sure the world is going to allow this.
It's the international community that's the problem. You know, as I look on this map, I think it would be outstanding for it to happen. It'd be great for Israel. It would really be great for the entire Western world. Yeah, and I'm looking, thinking, okay, so you have this Al Jilani group in Turkey, you got this radical ISIS type of group there. This is just nuts. So as Israel is pushing into Syria, I don't see how they can leave the area that they're now in, the DMZ, because they couldn't trust the UN before. And didn't Israel just go and defend the UN in Syria?
In the area, yes, the Islamic Jihad was going to overtake the UN positions in on the border with Syria, and Israel went and backed them down. But I want to add something that nobody's looking at, and Tom, it drives me crazy. The world is getting mad at Israel about holding on to the DMZ. The world is getting mad at Israel playing a role in what's going on in Syria. The world is getting mad at Israel, let's say, giving independence. Look what Turkey did on the other side of that map. They've gone in, and Turkey is holding on to areas inside Syria. Turkey has conquered pieces of Syria. Turkey set up this Tahrir al-Shams, which is the organization in Idlib, inside Idlib, which has created, how do you say, a semi-autonomous area in Idlib that's where they came from, this El Julani guy. They've been supporting them and pushing them on. They've been doing all the things that everybody's getting mad at Israel for doing. And nobody says anything. I mean, you go up, you see a map, there are hundreds of square miles, kilometers that have been taken by Turkey in northern Syria. Is anybody talking about it?
No.
Nobody's talking about it. And it's no different from what Israel is doing. They're saying, wait a minute, we're afraid of what's going on in Syria, so we create a buffer zone because we need to defend ourselves. Israel's saying the same thing. And Saudi Arabia, MBS actually got mad at Israel this week about what's going on. So the hypocrisy and the duality of it all is very, very interesting. And we will add one more thing. The Kurds, which are the excuse. I mean, again, this is Turkey saying we have a problem with the Kurds. Israel saying we have a problem with Hamas. We're going into the Kurdish area to make sure it will not be used against us. Israel saying we're going into Gaza for it not to be used against us. I mean, the hypocrisy is so blatant, which brings us back to, yes, the only thing that this can be is a spiritual war. We're understanding what the Assad family has been doing for 70 years. Why isn't he convicted by the criminal court? And why does he not have today arrest warrant on his name from Russia? But again, we hear so much. It's just getting it.
Go ahead.
It's just going to get worse, Tom.
Okay, so I look at this, and for me, it's pretty easy to make the connection. This is a spiritual battle that's behind it. I know what the Bible says, and so I know that the Jews are going to be hated because it is a spiritual battle against Jesus. Jesus said, I'm going to come back. When Israel cries out, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, the Messiah will come back. So I can make that connection. But when I was in Israel recently, I saw some really exciting things with an openness to hearing about Yeshua with people, both Arab and Jew. And it was really, I mean, it was off the chart, some of the things. At the same time, there's also a hardness of heart still towards the spiritual things. Both things are happening at the same time. Do you think Jews in general are waking up to the understanding there is a spiritual battle? I'm not saying necessarily Yeshua yet, but waking up to the understanding there's something not right here. They hate us because we're Jews. I mean, everything you described, Turkey can do whatever they want. Russia can do whatever they want. And as I didn't know MBS got mad at Israel the other day. I mean, so you see this, everybody can hate on the Jews. It's okay with their little tiny country. Are Jews in general starting to say maybe it's a spiritual thing that's taking place? It's not just because they just don't like us because we're successful or something like that?
Well, there is a spiritual revival, by the way, going on in Israel as we speak, but it's a Jewish spiritual revival. Nobody is saying Jesus, which in my mind, is almost tragic. Okay, because Tom, again, I think you've heard me say this before. Open up Daniel 9, prophecies about end time. Daniel kind of gives us hope for the rest of the world, gives us lays out a plan for. But the three verses before he starts laying out this amazing prophecy and hope for everything. Okay, he gets down on his knees and prays to God, save my people, because our people were not being saved. And I, to a certain extent, am saying, I'm seeing all this playing out. I'm seeing all the prophecy playing out. I mean, I'm trying to figure out a scenario that kind of even, I can see Gog and Magog on the way down. I mean, you see how it's happening, but my people are not reaching out. And I'm totally frustrated because of this, and totally frustrated about how to deal with this. And I'm going to go back to what I kept on saying, and this maybe connects to what I'm doing now. The only way is to bring Christian love to Israel today. We as Christians, and again, I sit on this very interesting fence where I'm both Christian and Jewish and Israeli. It's weird. But we as Christians need to bring Christian love to the people of Israel. We need to do it in the name of Jesus. It is going to be accepted today like it's never been accepted before. And it's hopefully going to open up or move into a power vacuum, for lack of a better word, or a spiritual vacuum that there is in Israel that is now being filled in by the ultra-Orthodox. And again, it's not that I have anything against that, but I would rather that be filled in with Jesus and the blood of the Lamb. And I think that's what we need to pray for as much as anything else.
So speaking of, I love talking about Israel, as you know, and taking groups over to Israel. And I get asked all the time, why do you take groups over to Israel? Because when you can connect with the land, you start to connect with the people. It's like this light bulb goes on, even for the person who already believes in the Bible and believes in Bible prophecy. But when you go there, you start to see things. I was talking with Dan Cohen just recently from Real Life, and he said, now is the time to come because nobody's going. I mean, so few people are going. Obviously, we have a tour coming up in March, but are you going there? You're going to be back living there again soon, but you have a tour coming up or anything?
Well, yes, hopefully, and again, I'm kind of making sure, but I just now got news that Mike Huckabee, the governor, or the new ambassador to Israel,
great.
is going to be leading a tour in the end of February that I'm going to be a part of. And I'm so excited about that. We've got a tour, I think we're talking about in June together. I'm going to be doing another tour in May together. So there is kind of, how do you say, there is movement in that direction. But I will say this, there still is a fear factor going on. But here's the thing. This is the time to overcome the fear. This is the time to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, and be blessed by that.
Amen. I love that. I mean, all these different things are going on, and they try to tell people, listen, everything's going to continue moving forward, marching forward. You look at the northern area, you look at Gaza, we look at, it's astounding. I've tried to communicate with people as much as I can since I was just recently there. I've never experienced anything like I did on this last time in Israel. It's just Jackie and myself meeting with Roddy, Eli Shukran, and some others, and it was just phenomenal to do the things and to see the people. I'm trying to tell people, look, and David, as it is always, every time I go there, I felt so much safer there than I do anywhere in California. I mean, just driving down the street of the own city I live in, and people don't get it because all they hear on the news is they think bombs are going off in your hotel rooms, and they don't understand. No, it's not like that. It's really just, there's this weird spiritual thing. God says, I'd never slumber or sleep, he who keeps Israel. And you realize, you get there, you go, this is amazing. And then you make this connection to the Lord that you just can't make without being there.
Like I said, it takes the Bible off the flannel board and off the VeggieTales.
Off the VeggieTales. That's great. That is great. Let me ask you this about moving I have a lot more to ask you. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to cram things in there.
Let's do it.
The people who have had to flee, they've become refugees in the hotels. Do you see them moving back into the northern area anytime soon? Because I think it would be hard unless you're assured absolute safety, even though Israel has victory after victory after victory. Psychologically, it'd be difficult, I think.
Okay, so this one I can go personal because the people living in my apartment in Modin right now own a house on the border with Lebanon in the north. They moved out and set up shop in Modin because of the situation. And I actually talked to him the day before yesterday, and I said, okay, now that we have peace, he says, David, I'm not sure yet. So I'm going to continue staying in your apartment for a while longer. We are in PTSD. And especially the people in the north are still in PTSD. And it's not like the Hamas it's not like the Hezbollah has given up its weapons and say, we're not going to fight anymore. They've really said, okay, we'll agree to a ceasefire. We'll agree not to fire anymore. Okay. In the meantime, nobody's made a peace agreement. And don't forget, we've had agreements with this with the Hamas in Gaza a couple of times. And when they decided to break it, they broke it. So again, we see people moving back. It might be better, but we're not back to the situation. And it's going to be a while before Israel comes out of this. I mean, Israel is a wounded. I mean, we're in rehabilitation right now. We're not even in rehabilitation right now. We've stopped bleeding maybe, but there's still things going on, and we have to see how that's going to work out.
Let me ask you this. I mean, to me, it's just absolutely the most amazing thing to watch. It just seems Israel literally has had victory after victory after victory. October 7, 2023 happened, but then we've just been watching it, and it has been there's been miraculous things that have happened. And it's Iran, it's Hezbollah, it's Hamas, it's all of Israel's enemies, and Israel just keeps on having these amazing victories. Or do people? I mean, to me, it's just astounding, and it's just such a reminder that God keeps Israel.
One of the tactics that Satan uses in order to make him seem more powerful than he is to lie about his capabilities. And we've seen enemies in the past do that. Russia has been doing that, and we're going to realize that Russia isn't the great enemy that it is. By the way, it looks like China is not as scary and as dangerous as it is. Iran turns out to be a paper tiger. So the enemy many times uses the shadow tactics to make them seem more than they actually are. And it's not until you have the courage and the strength to pull back the veil, then you see who you're actually dealing with. And like I'm going to say, it's not 72 versions, it's 72 Virginians. And you get a completely different, and I think this is what's been happening in the Middle East with Hamas. Again, don't get me wrong, Hamas hit us bad. But then standing up and saying this with the Houthis. I mean, the Houthis fired a rocket yesterday. And again, sirens went off in Israel. But that's not an existential threat to the state of Israel. You get an idea. So yes, our enemies are less than the same. On the other hand, you can't live with somebody who says, I want to kill you. I mean, even if you have a big wall between you and your neighbor, if the neighbor over there has a shotgun and says, I want to kill you, you're going to have to take that seriously. And we are taking that seriously much more now. And we still haven't talking about nuclear capabilities, Iran, and President Trump. And that's all mixed in together today. I heard a lot about it today.
So do we have enough time to, I want to ask you about Trump, Huckabee, and nuclear Iran. I know we don't have a lot of time left. And I want to ask you about Gaza also. But I also want to ask you this first. So not sure if we can squeeze it all in. Let's try, because I'm going to go here first. Can you fill in everybody? One of the things I want to do is introduce you to everybody. A lot of people already know you, but Nativa, your brother's organization, and also yours with Gihon Springs and Balagon Connection. Can you kind of walk people through these things and let people know how they can connect with you on?
Let's start off with the beginning. My brother Joel put together a ministry that actually prepares young Israeli believers Christians before they go into the military. He did that because I walked away from the Lord. He watched me walk away from the Lord when I went into the military, and he wanted that not to happen to other people. It's called Netiva, and it's been running in Israel for a while. By the way, Joel just now landed here. He's going to be here in a bit. But Netiva and other Christian organizations are the ministry that Pastor Jeff Johnson from Calvary Chapel Downey put together before he passed away to support ministries like Netiva and other ministries in Israel. And we have a ministry called Gihon Springs that I am a part of that actually sends resources both to Joel and the Netiva ministry and to other ministries in Israel. It is a way for you to kind of support Israel and support what's going on, and be a part of what's happening in Israel in the name of Jesus, which is really, really important to me. And since I am here and I'm not guiding anymore, I've been putting up content that is connected to connecting all the different balagan about what's going on, explaining. Balagan means mix up, mess up, things that don't go according to plan, and that's everything about the Middle East or your elections, by the way.
What a hell my.
That was a good balagan. But basically, so those three are coming together. So if you want, there's a link down here to Gihon Springs if you want to support me or Joel or the Balagan Connection or everything else. And if you hear about people who want to hear what's going on in Israel from a Christian point of view, let me know.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much. And I encourage you to check out David's ministry. Go to Gihon Springs, see the link, and check everything out. You'll be blessed. And okay, you want to let's move. Go ahead. One more thing.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I think this is the 2-week window for Israel to hit Iranian's nuclear facility. Maybe 3 weeks. If we don't do it now, I think Trump will use what he calls soft power in order to solve the Iranian problem. Meaning Israel has, I think, a window of opportunity. While what's happening in Syria is Syria, and remember that we need to fly through Syria to get to Iran. And while the situation is still fluid, I think Israel has a 2-week, maybe a 3-week window to hit Israel's nuclear capability, Iran's nuclear capability. And if they don't, Iran has already reached out to President Trump and said, let's reach an agreement. Let's talk about it. We'll do this, we'll do that. And they might be willing to give major concessions. But I think maybe Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government and the Israeli mindset and the world is prepared for a major strike on Iran's nuclear capabilities. And the thing is this, we believe that since Iran is so weak right now, that's the only thing that they have left to play. So we need to take that away from them. So this is a I think, very important 2-week, 3-week period where if it doesn't happen now, I don't see how it will happen while Trump is in office. And that's going to be an interesting thing.
Wow, that is interesting. I mean, so we have drones going off in New Jersey. And what a wild time to be living in. And what you just mentioned, there's like a 2-week window. Okay, Huckabee is the ambassador.
Yeah.
He's obviously very friendly with Israel. He has a much better biblical understanding than most people do.
I'm going to stress the fact that when President Trump put him on that position, he put a Bible reading, born again Christian in a critical political position to convey his policy to the state of Israel. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what he was, in my mind, elected for. From a spiritual point of view, that's what he was elected for, and I think that's amazing. So, yes, I'm all excited.
I do too, and he's a friend of yours, which is neat. You know,
yep.
You got that going for you too in Israel. Yeah. I think it's great. It's great. Okay, let's shift down south to Gaza. and Abraham Accords, the normalization agreements. I mean, Israel can't trust the UN.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see even Europe saying, hey, certain nations in Europe are saying, hey, we're not going to fund UNRWA anymore. That was news that just came out yesterday. You're starting to see this, and the reality of it is, okay, so I was in Tel Aviv a while back, and it was one of the days that I think we went out and did something later that day, but I'm having breakfast, and there's this guy next to me at the table just across, and we were both alone, just struck up a conversation about Gaza, and I asked him what's going to happen in Gaza the day after. And he said, it's easy. The UN needs to take control of it. And we were disagreeing with everything. At that, I just said, are you crazy? You actually think that's the best thing that could happen? And he said, yeah, then he walked away. I think that's like the worst thing that can happen, but where do you see this, or do you have any idea yet?
Well, there's talk about a Palestinian reconciliation going on between the Hamas and the PA, the Palestinian Authority. Okay, and they are going to put together some kind of government that will actually run it. But we're not sure yet how that's going to work. Israel is not taking any chances. We have actually created a 3-4 mile, how do you say, a disconnect between the northern part of Gaza and the southern part of Gaza along the Netzarim route. You can actually see it on satellite photos if you can get your hands on some of the satellite. We're actually scraping the ground to make sure that we're disconnected. So we're taking care of what we need to take care of in Gaza right now. And Israel will never move out of Gaza completely. Who runs Gaza is going to be up to a lot more and a lot of different things.
Yeah, normalization agreements, and I'm thinking with Trump coming back in, there's going to be renewed emphasis on these things.
Okay, so what Trump keeps on talking about in the Middle East is what we call the mega deal, and he's going to do Trump heights, in the Middle East. And this mega deal he's talking about is everything, including Saudi Arabia, including Egypt, by the way, including Jordan. We haven't talked about the fact that Jordan and Egypt and the rest of the moderate Muslim states are freaked out about what happened in Syria, including the West Bank, because the Muslim elements are seeing what happened in Syria and say, if we can overthrow the Assad machine, we can overthrow Jordan. And King Hussein, I don't know, Israel has been, the head of the Mossad was in Amman a couple of days ago, sitting down with Jordan and saying, how do we turn off the fire that is connecting Syria, Jordan, and the West Bank? And how do we make sure that, that doesn't become a major issue? But what I'm trying to say is this mega deal that President Trump wants to go, and that's going to be his legacy. And I don't know if you know, I heard somebody say a little while ago, he was upset that he didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize for the Abrahamic Accords. He's still pushing for that. He wants to pull off a mega deal in the Middle East, and he's going to put every ounce of pressure that he can. So it'll push the Hamas into lowering their expectation for what they're going to get as a result. And I think the Hamas has realized that they're not going to get out of here standing anymore. So that's why there's the ceasefire / hostage negotiation is about to come through, and it is going to come through with Israel making concessions to the Hamas in the name of a bigger deal with the Saudis and with the rest of the Gulf states. And I think that's what President Trump is going to push Israel into.
So with the threat, the Syrian threat, as you mentioned, affecting Jordan and the West Bank, is that also a threat that MBS is looking at?
Oh, the whole moderate world. I mean, think about this. Iran is not lost. Now, MBS wasn't afraid of Iran inside Syria because they're Shia and he's Sunni. But now he has Sunni fundamentalists raising her head. And let's remind us, Anwar Sadat in Egypt, the president of Egypt, was assassinated by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood tried to overthrow the Jordanian king in 1972. So the Muslim Brotherhood is a major threat to all the moderate nations. Everybody's afraid of that right now. A big peace deal which would bring prosperity to the Middle East, it would be a major asset. The Americans want it, the Israelis want it, and I think all the moderate nations want it, and that would be the only thing that would actually offset Turkey, Qatar, and the Muslim Brotherhood connection to what's going on in the Middle East.
This is just amazing. While you're talking, I can't help but think of it's here in Daniel. Let me read it. It's chapter 8, verse 25, and people differ on the timing of it, but I read this: through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule, and he shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity or by peace. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. I look at that as a prophecy regarding Antichrist. There's different opinions on what that is, but I've often thought the talk of prosperity is going to become much bigger in Israel. People connected with Israel on the good side are going to look at it as being something that's going to be prosperous for them. Peace is going to come there, but there's still a lot of things going on. What are your thoughts on some of this?
Again, I can't help it, and I'm going to use an illustration I used a little while ago. And do you remember in Israel, you've got these little booklets where you go into a site and you get a picture of a site, let's say Capernaum, and it's got a little plastic folder, a piece of paper that you see what it looked like originally, what it really looked like. Yeah. I can't help but make the connection to biblical prophecy and what we're seeing. We're looking at the events that are happening in the world. When you take the biblical prophecy and you put it on top, then you get a real view of what is really happening. And here's the thing. There is some kind of movement in the Middle East, and if President Trump accomplishes what he wants to do, he is going to bring a peace to the Middle East. An overall sense of peace, but it's not a real peace. It's not going to be a real peace because the underlying sentiment of the Muslim world is hatred of Israel. The underlying sentiment of the rest of the world is hatred of Israel. So there's going to be a peace that's going to come together, and Israel's going to say, we're tired of war. We've lost so many people. It's cost us so much. We can be so proud. Think about a Middle East in peace, what Israel can give to the Middle East and what Israel can get from a peaceful Middle East. We're going to be prosperous, and we don't have to spend something like 38% of our GDP on military. We're going to go like this, and it's going to be a false sense of peace. And I can see this happening, an overall mega kind of agreement where Israel seeps into this cushy, mushy, here, everything's taken care of, and that's going to be the backdrop for what's going to happen.
You know, we live in remarkable days, and I think even when I look at anti-Semitism all over the Western world, if somebody could just come along and subdue that. I mean, what Jew would not say, okay, now I can live. I don't have to, I mean, you just look, and it's everywhere, and it's growing. So the peace in the Mideast, everywhere Israel goes, they're under a threat from their enemy. David, one last question, but first, before I get the last question, real quick, again, people can connect with you. Everybody, you can see the description there in the video, but real quick, Gihon Springs.
The Gihon Springs is a ministry that also connects to me personally and to all of the work that we're doing. By the way, Joel, my brother, is coming in. We're going to be in different places. I think we're going to be visiting Rock Harbor on Wednesday, so if you connect to that. And what I'm trying to say is reach out to Israel. Reach out, show your support. Gihon Springs is an amazing way to do it because we're totally into supporting the people in Israel and supporting me if you want to do that. And this is the place to do it.
Great. And so my last question is just that. Why does Israel matter?
We are the apple of God's eye. We're the canary in the coal mine. What happens in Israel is indicative of what's happening spiritually in the world. And it's so clear today to see it like that. The very terrible hatred of Israel, the anti-Semitism that is going on, doesn't make sense unless Israel matters. And I'm going to repeat something that I've said before. If you want proof that Israel is playing a role in Israel's matters, Satan has put Israel in his crosshairs. Satan knows Israel matters. Satan knows Israel is important and is taking all the stops out to attack Israel. And if that's not enough of an indication to you what is important, then I don't know what is.
That is so spot on. Thank you so much. Okay, so everybody, David and his brother Joel will be at Brandon Holt House Church Wednesday, Rock Harbor in Bakersfield. David's going to be in El Centro Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the end of January, first weekend in February, going, I think it's like January 30th, February 1st, something like that. I believe we have that on the events page. Join us in El Centro, California. David's got his tour coming up with Mike Huckabee, which is exciting. And with me in June, if you can swing it, that'd be great. Love to see you guys. And thank you so much for joining us. Check out everything David has to offer. And Balagon Connection.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Look at it, I got my red shirt on. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas from the Balagon. That's great. And, check out that. David also has his Balagon shirts available too. And fantastic. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And join me tomorrow. I have the Daves on this week. David Tal today, David Bowen tomorrow, David Reagan on Wednesday. It's the three Davids.
You're being very beloved.
It's going to be great. Great week. Great start. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll get into drones, everybody, tomorrow with Dave Bowen. So check that out. But God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us. And see you later.
To see you soon.